Hello and welcome to Norm's Real Estate Tips. I'm speaking to you again today from my home in Milford, Michigan, where I work full-time as a realtor for Real Estate One. Last time we dealt with the issues or the things you should be doing while you're waiting from the time your offer is accepted until closing. There are a number of things that I recommended that you have to be doing, like getting the inspection done, reviewing the title search, dealing with, getting the appraisal done, which is not something you have to do, but which will be done, and so forth. We made it sound like you could just breeze right through all of those things with no worries, and it's not that you should worry, but there's likely to be some issues that come up that result out of those things that you're doing. I've been a realtor for a long time, and I've never seen a house, including a relatively new build house, that didn't come things that need to be fixed or attended to out of the home inspection. Now keep in mind there are minor issues that will show up in the home inspection report and major issues. You should focus on the major issues and not nitpick the seller over every minor issue. The major issues are things that will impact your health or could impact your health, such as radon, mold, maybe a lack of GFCI circuits that could be a shock or electrocution threat in the kitchens and baths, things like that. Minor issues might be, a broken seal on a window, maybe a missing knob or a missing cover plate, electrical cover plate. Things like that you could probably fix or get to later. But the big issues you want to make sure you get resolved before you go to closing, because these are things that you would be financially responsible for after closing if you don't get them fixed. So you want to take the opportunity to have the seller, who should have fixed these things anyway, but have them seller pay for the repairs before closing. One of the things you want to do is create a list for the seller of the things that you want him to address, and the way that you want them addressed. If you want them addressed by a licensed professional or not, you should specify that. If the seller refuses to do those things, he may offer some sort of a financial settlement with you, some money off the purchase price. And that's okay if you're willing to deal with these things after closing, but you've got to make sure you get enough money out of this such that you can pay for the repairs. So it's all right to insist that the seller gets some quotes, maybe 2 or 3 quotes, average them out, provide you with some documentation that he's got the quotes, and then come up with a number that is reasonable to you to accept so that you do the work later. If you can't get those quotes, if the seller refuses to even consider giving you money off, it may be time to walk away from this deal, because otherwise you're strung up with all those costs after closing with no help from the ex-seller. So get those things agreed to ahead of time. When you get an agreement with the seller, make sure you put it in writing, make sure you put deadlines on it, make sure you put in there who's going to do it, whether it's a licensed pro or not, and make sure you put in there the ability that reserve the right to re-inspect the thing, make sure it was done properly, and finally reserve the right to walk away from the deal. If the seller doesn't get the repair done to your satisfaction, you still have the ability to get out of the deal and walk away so you don't get stuck with them. You've got to be a little flexible on timing, because if you're asking the seller to get quotes, it takes time to get quotes. So you may have to give him a week or so to get all the quotes and stuff together and get back to you with a response on which ones he's going to have fixed and which ones he just wants to give you money off on. Some things also, remember, you're trying to bring this whole thing to a close in about 30 days. It may be that the seller can't physically get the work done. He gets quotes, but the quotes are for a month out or so. He might not be able to get the work done before closing. So there you have to decide whether you want to negotiate some sort of an escrowed amount to cover the work later that the seller's supposedly paying for, or you again want to just take some money off and you do the work afterwards. But get as much done by the seller as you can before closing, because after closing it's your house and your responsibility. One of the other things we talked about was title issues. Those are the seller's responsibility to resolve. So if you express your dissatisfaction with title issues that are found, don't be bullied into settling and going to closing with issues on title that you're not comfortable with. Ask the seller to get a lawyer to quiet the title if that's necessary. I've actually seen that on a couple of deals that I had, where a lawyer had to get involved, go find missing relatives from an old will, and get everybody to release whatever rights they might have had to the property. But don't be bullied into taking a house with a title that has issues. One of the biggies that hits in a lot of cases is a low appraisal. Low appraisals are not totally a showstopper, but they probably will be something the seller is not happy with. He probably will disagree with. He may, rant and rave about getting new appraisals, etc. A low appraisal, again, is an issue that's really the seller's. You can suggest right away that you reset the purchase price down to the appraisal price. He probably won't be overly happy with that. He might agree, or he may come back to you and offer to split the difference or something like that. At that point, it's up to you. Do you want to kick some more money into the deal to save the deal on this house, or do you want the seller to eat all of the difference between the appraised value and the sale price? Again, be prepared to walk away if this issue can't be resolved, because your mortgage company is not going to give you a mortgage for the amount that you asked for if the appraisal doesn't come in to support that amount. Occasionally, especially if you're a VA and trying to get a VA loan and maybe get into a condo complex or a site condo complex, you may find that you have hit a non-certified development. That's a development where the builder didn't take the time up front to fill out the VA certification forms and submit them and get the complex certified for VA. If that's the case, there is a process to go through, but it's not an easy one, and it does involve the homeowners association of the development getting with the VA and getting the paperwork properly filled out and turned in. Sometimes that can be a little difficult because homeowners associations really don't like to do extra work or extra paperwork. But stick with it. You should be able to work your way through that issue. That reminds me, you should get with the homeowners association early in the process just to make sure there are no issues with the homeowners association with this particular home. In some cases, you'll find that even though the homeowners association hasn't yet slapped a lien on the place, maybe the seller hasn't paid their dues for the last 3 years, and the homeowners association either wants that money paid back by the seller, or they're going to slap a lien on the place. So get with them and find out if there's anything that's amiss with the homeowners association. I also told you the underwriter will be on you all the time asking for documentation and proof of things. Make sure you immediately respond to any request from the underwriter. Delaying getting back to the underwriter with something he needs to do his job is just going to stretch the whole process out, and you may end up not being able to meet the agreed to target close date because you haven't got all your documentation in, and the underwriter can't issue a clear to close. If you're going to sell stock or move money out of some sort of a 401k or something, let yourself at least a week or two, I recommend 2 weeks before closing, to get that process going. Selling stocks and then getting the availability of the money is not an instantaneous thing. It's more than a day or two. In some cases, it can be almost a week before you have access to the money. And then you still have to move the money from your stock brokerage account to your bank, and then your bank has to clear it, and then use that money in the bank to get the either the wire transfer set up or to write a certified check. So don't leave those things for the last minute. You'll find out if you wait till the day before closing, you can't close because you can't get to your money. So those are some of the things, the roadblocks that might occur during this period. There's always a way to get around them, or get through them, I guess is a better way to say it, to work your way through them if you have the will and you want to do it. These are places also which will test your resolve to buy the house. So, get through them if you can, or make that decision if you can't. But be aware that you'll have a lot of these kind of things to do during that time when you're waiting for closing. Hopefully you don't hit many of these, but if you do, you've got a few ideas now of things you might have to do. So I hope these tips helped you. This is Norm's Real Estate Tips. I'm Norm Werner. Thanks for watching.